Tesla just got the price of full self-driving down to $4,500. And here you can see the whole history of FSD pricing right here. But this only applies to some inventory vehicles to clear out the inventory, or is it? Some are also saying that this was just a mistake, but for some period of time, definitely the price of FSD was $4,500 for some new vehicles in the inventory. And this made some bulls happy. So everyone is debating now what happened exactly, and Sawyer thinks that it had nothing to do with one of the free paid option incentives. That's a month-old thing. If you remember, for certain vehicles that qualify for the EV tax credit, they are giving a free paid option with the purchase of FSD. Sawyer believes that the FSD discounts for certain vehicles in inventory was clearly an error or bug, or Tesla changed their mind. Probably the former, he believes, and of course all of the bears will think Tesla changed its mind. But I think Omar has the best explanation. He recorded a video explaining and showing this to everyone. So for example, you get a Model X, we add a 7-seat interior, which is a $3,500 option, and now watch the final price, $79,500. And what happens when we add FSD? Check the price. What happens to it? It goes up by $4,500. And then uncheck FSD, bam, down to 79,000 again. So it appears to me that the most likely explanation is right here. Tesla just wanted to simplify its pricing and make it more obvious. If you get this other paid option, hey, you're only paying $4,500 for FSD, but I think it just confused everyone further. And Sawyer actually agrees with this final explanation from Omar. The pricing was supposed to get simpler, but it's getting more confusing actually. I also saw some people talk about the tax credits, but remember that tax credits do not impact the limit of how expensive the car can be to still qualify for the $7,500 tax credit in the US. In the eyes of the government, FSD does not make the car more expensive, so they actually do not count the price of FSD towards the vehicle price to calculate the limit for the subsidy. So can you actually get FSD for $4,500? Yes, but you were able to do that already earlier. So technically, with a very big asterisk, we could say that FSD now is as low as $4,500, but the asterisk is really big and it's only for some of the vehicles. At this point, I am very confident that the vehicles displayed earlier with the FSD price of $4,500 were with an expensive additional upgrade like a better interior or an expensive color option. Yesterday, Tesla stock closed 7.36% higher, and everyone thinks that's because of the interest rates, and largely that is true. The interest rates got cut and Tesla definitely benefits from that. And for Tesla, lower interest rates is basically a positive double whammy because people can now afford vehicles better, but also all stocks are valued more favorably because with lower interest rates, the money in the future is actually worth more. And most of Tesla's earnings are far in the future. So Tesla definitely benefits from that. But also, we had some great news from China, and Tesla bulls are celebrating this news. Alexander Merz is saying this is amazing. All bulls are happy with this number. Gary Black called it a strong number. The sales in China have been really steady so far this quarter, and this was actually the second best week so far this quarter. So it's actually really good. The only previous week that was better in the last few quarters was Q4, but that's towards the end of the year. Yeah, that's just not a fair comparison because the market is on fire at the end of the year, and Tesla usually makes a big delivery push as well. And year to date, Tesla now has delivered definitely more vehicles compared to the previous year. 425,000 deliveries so far in China versus 417,000 the previous year. And we are 30,000 units ahead of Q2 in China. And AJ has a prediction here. China's outperformance alone, if the rest of the world comes in line with Q2, already suggests Q3 sales of at least 474,000. And comparing the current quarter with all other quarters, definitely we are having the best quarter. Now, will we beat the Q4 of the last year? That remains not exactly clear, but if the numbers continue to be good, the chances are high that we will beat even Q4 of the last year. Gary Black believes that the quarter will be the best quarter in China, beating even Q4 of the last year. And of course, Tesla's Model Y is the best-selling SUV in China year to date, which means a lot because China is definitely the most competitive EV market in the world, and the Model Y being number one over there among SUVs means a lot. In Europe, we got deliveries as well. A European regulator just dropped August registration numbers, and Tesla sold 21,700 vehicles in Europe in August. And you can see here that when we compare Tesla's deliveries in Europe to the previous year in August, this year the sales are down 36%. Why is that? And by the way, keep in mind that year over year, year to date, the deliveries are not really down that much. But if you remember, the European Union started adding tariffs on every single vehicle imported from China to Europe, and naturally sales would slow down. I would be surprised if we didn't see a slowdown. In response to tariffs, Tesla raised the price. Naturally, that would lower demand. And then on top of that, Tesla was rushing everyone to order their vehicles before the tariffs took place, pulling demand forward basically from the future. There's also one more critical reason why sales are down year over year in August in Europe, and Germany used to have this pretty good incentive for some vehicles, which was removed, making a lot of people order the vehicle from Tesla in August. And of course, year over year numbers are not going to be good because this year these subsidies are not available. And then there was another subsidy that ended later. So in Germany, if you look at its BEV adoption rate, it doesn't look all that great. It fluctuates because of these subsidies being taken away. But over there in Europe right now, there are 18 countries where BEV adoption is growing and 13 countries where it is negative. The total European BEV adoption rate from January to August was 23% in 2022, 15% in 2023, and 14% this year so far. So you would look at this number and think, oh, bad things are happening, but this is largely influenced by Germany. But if you compare the BEV adoption rate in 2022 to 2024, you will see that pretty much every country is doing better now compared to 2022, with one exception being Germany, basically. And there are a few other small, tiny ones like Romania, but that's not an important market to Tesla. James is pretty good at estimating deliveries, and he calls Q3 an interesting quarter. He's very bullish on volume, as he has been all quarter, and China is driving significant quarter-over-quarter growth. He believes, though, that Europe is actually stabilizing. US is strong on the first full quarter of Model 3 IRA qualification, but the issue he predicts will be auto margin. Despite the strong deliveries and thus revenue, this quarter will feature the largest percentage of cars ever financed through a promotional rate. So auto margin is likely to fall again quarter over quarter. Another reason is that China's average selling price is usually lower and profit margins over there are also lower. And this quarter, a bigger share of the total deliveries will be from China, so that will also contribute. But if energy delivers another strong quarter with high gross margins like in the mid-20s, and if you have another good quarter of regulatory credits, which is quite possible, and we should be reaping some benefits from lower costs due to Tesla having less employees because of layoffs from before. It's sad if you are among one of these people, but it does help Tesla's bottom line. And because all of these reasons, James believes that we are due for a beat on the bottom line. And James, among Tesla analysts, is actually the best analyst for predicting Tesla's earnings per share. He definitely beats Wall Street on average. Not only did James beat the Wall Street consensus significantly, he also beat Troy, which is really difficult to do. James also commented on Tesla cutting the price of FSD. This was before it was clear that it wasn't actually a new discount. He would have actually liked this move. He called it good. When it comes to interest rates, James doesn't see Fed cutting rates as a very meaningful catalyst for Tesla, actually. It helps, sure, by reducing the financing costs that Tesla needs to pay for its promos, which will improve auto margins slightly, but this doesn't address the key underlying issue. Affordability is not the problem, he believes. James has the opinion that these are the underlying issues right now. Number one, consumer acceptance of EVs. Number two, lack of new vehicle choices. Number three, aging vehicle lineup. And number four, excess production capacity. But if EVs are cheaper, it's definitely much easier for new people to accept EVs. Tesla will launch new vehicles, so this is not really going to be a problem, as well as the supposedly aging vehicle lineup. And remember that the Model Y is still the #1 best-selling vehicle in the world, and excess production capacity will also be addressed with the new models, which will use the existing lines, manufacturing lines. There's a wave of FSD 12.5 going out, so if you don't have it yet, check your vehicles. Maybe today is your lucky day. And this wave is actually seemingly very big, so it's likely that you might receive this new version now. And this is people on hardware 3 getting this version. And the head of Tesla's Autopilot FSD program, Ashok, is actually showing off the company's new actually smart summon feature.
It's gonna park?
I think I just asked it to go around, but in the end I can park it actually. It's supposed to, the feature is supposed to come to you, unpark and come to you. It's called summon.
Okay,
the
summon.
Is the opposite feature. It's just like, I ask it to go and then just go and park somewhere. I'll ask you to come to the entrance there and just stop there.
Oh.
You can ask, you don't have to walk to the parking space. You can just ask it to come to you. He'll come and pick you up.
Chuck Cook spotted more Tesla vehicles, validating a new FSD release, so that's good. This is definitely good for Tesla. Kim Kardashian says her favorite vehicle right now is the Tesla Cybertruck. We're not seeing the Mercedes G-Wagon. We are now seeing Cybertrucks all over the place. Also, it looks like she painted it or wrapped it. Turns out it's actually a paint. She didn't wrap it, she painted her Cybertruck. She also got these special wheels. Here it is. What do you think? It certainly stands out even more. I think this is actually quite relevant for all of us to know, especially if you have a Tesla vehicle yourself. This Cybertruck, which was probably an illegal import into Russia, or it could have been imported into another country, and then eventually it ended up in the hands of this Russian general, basically. Elon called him a Russian general. And this specific Cybertruck has been deactivated, and there's a response from this guy. This is not a nice thing Elon Musk is doing. He makes expensive gifts from the bottom of his heart and then switches them off remotely. Now, to be clear, Elon Musk has never gifted the Cybertruck to him. To me personally, it was obvious that this was possible, but if you needed proof that Tesla can deactivate pretty much any Tesla vehicle in the world, well, here it is. I personally believe that it's not just Teslas that can be basically deactivated, but if you can remotely start or turn off your vehicle. For example, I used to have a Mercedes and I was able to remotely start that vehicle. Most modern vehicles, if it can receive over-the-air software updates, I am pretty sure there's a way to deactivate them too, so it's not really a Tesla-specific thing. But some people do not want EVs because they believe, oh, well, if you have an electric vehicle, the government will be able to control you. But the reality is, if you have basically any modern vehicle, whether it's an EV or not, the same thing applies. You have to go back many decades to find cars without any computers. But if the car has some sort of internet connection, of course, that's where your vehicle is a lot more vulnerable to being hacked or controlled by someone. But if you are worried specifically about EMP attacks, you have to get a vehicle that's really old, probably before 1980s. While many cars will not have a direct connection to the internet or an ability to do that, technically, many cars have cellular radios which can be used to support emergency features that call the police if you are in an accident. But of course, with Teslas and these very modern vehicles, you just press one button and the car is inactive. Personally, as a consumer, I definitely don't see this as a positive thing, but I carry my cell phone with me everywhere, and the government, if it wanted to, could track me, turn on my microphone and stuff like that, and yet everyone has a cell phone and everyone carries it everywhere they go. And we love it because you are better off having a cell phone than not having it with you. And with EVs, they are going to be so much better economically that it will not make sense to not own one. And even if you do not own an EV, eventually all of these new modern cars will also be fully controllable over the air. Most analysts were expecting that the Fed would cut the interest rates by 0.25% and not by 0.5%. But there were quite a few people actually in the Tesla community that predicted the cut correctly. AJ called for a 0.5% cut, so a shout out goes to him. Pesci also got it right. I also thought this was a bit silly. Well, it's time. Sold my entire Tesla stock position after 3 years of holding it and being stuck. I turned green on it for the 50,000th time, and this time I'm not going into the cycle again. Time to move on to new opportunities. I hope I made the right decision. This was about a week ago. Yesterday, Tesla stock went up over 7%, although today it's down a little bit as I'm recording the video, but not much. And this is a reminder that historically, holding Tesla stock for just about 3 years probably not a good decision. Likely you ended up losing some money or breaking even. Personally, every time I buy more Tesla stock, I'm going in with an assumption, okay, I'm gonna hold this position for 10 years or more. And I had that same expectation actually when I first became a Tesla stock investor in early 2019. I was ready to hold that position for 10 years and see no gains. Anyway, the stock rallying yesterday, 7%, largely due to interest rates, sparked this new discussion. Can we now say that Tesla was down this year not because of Elon buying eggs, but rather because of the macro? I'm sure some people sold Tesla because they don't like Elon posting his random thoughts all day, but it seems today that 700 billion of invested capital in Tesla does not care about him posting. I certainly think it's fair to say that the people that are invested today care less about what Elon Musk posts compared to before him buying X or Twitter, because now it's sort of just expected every day. We expect Elon Musk to say something politically that 5 years ago would have seemed outrageous for Elon Musk to say. We are just used to it now. Farzad responded with bingo. Everyone who was shouting from the rooftops about brand damage and political poop posting is eating crow. It was always about interest rates, and it was obvious to anyone who wasn't wrapped up in an emotional bubble. I think everything is a bit more complicated than that. If we just look at the simplest possible explanations, okay, well, Elon Musk sold Tesla stock because he bought Twitter. If he didn't sell Tesla stock would not have dropped as much. And on the days or on the weeks that he would sell, we clearly saw Tesla stock drop. So that definitely contributed to Tesla stock dropping. And what it also did is it created this negative sentiment, and then the shorts shorted Tesla stock and they made money. And because they made money, that actually drove the stock even further. It crushed the sentiment, and that happened a few times. But what about brand damage? Well, there's actually some interesting new data that I have to show you. So I found this chart which shows favorability for Tesla by political leaning, and you can see that there were quite a few responses. So the data is not going or shouldn't be bad, really. Keep in mind though that this data has been collected from the beginning of this year until now for each month, and you can see, and this is a bit weird, including conservatives, they view Tesla as less positive now as a brand. It makes sense why the left would see Tesla that way, but the conservatives or the Republicans, that's a bit surprising, certainly. Keep in mind, though, that the data for July is until 23rd of July, which means if, for example, a lot of these are from July 10th, this would have been before Elon Musk made the official endorsement. So while it's not guaranteed, I definitely assume that there should be a significant spike going forward from at least one party, but also then a dip from the other party. But I also found these responses have been collected after Elon Musk has made the endorsement, but keep in mind that there aren't that many responses. So I would take this data with a grain of salt. This is not going to be final data, but it asks here, has your opinion of Elon Musk, whether positive or negative, influenced your sentiment toward Tesla by political leaning among those familiar with Musk and Tesla? Blue means people are more interested in buying a Tesla. Green means less interested, and this other color means they don't care. And you can see that people that lean right, basically everything cancels out, so there's no change. But with the left, yeah, you can definitely see a negative effect here. Looking at some comments under Farzad's post, I saw this. I spent over an hour Tuesday night explaining to two friends why I like Tesla and have in the past given him a pass on some of his statements. There's most definitely brand damage. It's not the only factor, but I believe the stock would have been much higher, and that they would be selling every single vehicle they could make right now if not for his statements. And Farzad fires back with, if brand damage was material, Tesla wouldn't have the best-selling car in the world with almost no advertising. But if, let's say, Elon didn't say anything, maybe Tesla would be selling even more vehicles. I would certainly say there's no brand damage in China, which is also a big market for Tesla. But in the end, I agree with this statement from Farzad. People who make purchases based on their moral compass is lowest single digit of the world's population, perhaps even less than that. Certainly, the absolute majority of people buy things based on value for money, and Tesla has the best value for money product bar none. I also think that a lot of people doing the surveys will have a natural bias to be more often against Elon Musk, and naturally they will try to position their survey in a negative way. And therefore, I think Stephen Mark Ryan has a point here. Every time Elon Musk stands up for something important, shares an opinion, or willingly takes arrows, this is what happens. One person cries loudly that Elon is bad. But then for every person like this one, you get 5 to 10 times more people who were previously neutral about Musk discover he cares about doing the right thing and become fans. Maybe the ratio is not that high, but I think there is a point to be made here. Morgan Stanley has another new note that I haven't covered yet. Tesla and xAI living in a simulation. Tesla shareholders should understand what's happening at Elon Musk's AGI startup. The common denominator, training and simulation, deterministic to Tesla's future in robotics, autonomy, and manufacturing. They also have a prediction here. Heading into Tesla's Robotaxi event, we are frankly struggling to see how the day can live up to investors' high expectations, which is why I have low expectations usually for any events that Tesla holds. Also because on the day of the event or right after it, Tesla stock often falls. Not always, but more often than not, it falls. But leading up to the event, usually it goes up. Other than demonstrating FSD v12.5 and offering rides in a Gen 1 Cybercab, what else is in store? Perhaps there will be a detailed total addressable market analysis showing tens of trillions of passenger vehicle miles and tens of trillions of dollars of potential recurrent revenue by 2050. Morgan Stanley also points out that out of the 6 companies that Elon Musk runs, Tesla is the only one where he does not have a controlling stake. And Morgan Stanley is convinced that the relationship between xAI and Tesla may become more important over time. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. That's almost a given, especially with Tesla likely to invest in xAI eventually. We haven't received any updates about that. I'm wondering what's the situation about that. This is hilarious. So there's this article written. Elon Musk teases a new bulletproof Tesla golf cart. The article was just written on this publication. So people are writing entire articles based on posts from accounts on X that they mistakenly believe are from the real Elon Musk, but these are actually parody accounts. Despite clearly stating they're parodies, people still fall for it. Unlike this, Elon did this post promoting Tesla Semi. He posted this to his main timeline, getting over 10 million views. Also, Shanghai, which is where Tesla has one factory, a massive factory, just experienced the most powerful typhoon in 75 years. As far as I understand, Tesla didn't suffer any damages or anything like that, so everything should be okay. But Elon sent his best wishes for the resilient and resourceful people of Shanghai. He also asked the Tesla Shanghai team to help anyone in distress to the best of their ability. So Elon Musk really had enough here. This is a SpaceX letter to Congress. The FAA leadership spends their resources attacking SpaceX for petty matters that have nothing to do with safety while neglecting real safety issues at Boeing. This is deeply wrong and puts human lives at risk. NASA deemed the Boeing capsule unsafe for astronaut return, turning out of necessity to SpaceX. Yet instead of finding Boeing for putting astronauts at risk, the FAA is finding SpaceX for trivia. Elon also commented here that this is lawfare. Partisan politics is why FCC revoked Starlink's Rural Internet Award, says FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. And check this out, Cruise, which is owned by GM. They are manually mapping the Bay Area in San Francisco. That is a slow process. So if you want to scale this operation, you have to do that with every city in the US and every road in the US. This is so much effort, and profitability is very difficult with this approach. It's why I believe Tesla is going to win. And look at this. The Stellantis boss said, the auto industry is in survival mode. They are admitting it. He said, Stellantis needs to reach cost parity between gas and electric cars to stay alive. It's a good thing then that Tesla EVs are the best value for money, and they are sold profitably. That's it for today's Tesla news, but Elon did make a few more political statements, so if you would like to hear them, stay here. If not, I will see you next week, probably on Monday. Elon predicts that if the Elver side wins, the party will legalize enough migrants to ensure a permanent one-party rule that is increasingly socialist to a confiscatory level and repressive. Everywhere will be California, but worse, the one thing that gives California pause is that people can move to other states. What would happen if all states were ruled like California? Nowhere to move except other countries. Elon Musk made a few more political statements, but I'm not seeing any backlash against Elon overall or Tesla. I think people just got used to it. This post, by the way, got 28 million views. Anyway, that will be it for today's video, and I will see you back probably on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. By joining Patreon, you will have access to all of my exclusive videos on Patreon, as well as how much I am willing to pay for each Tesla share between 2024 and 2033. If you join the investor tier, you will also have access to my valuation model, where you will see all of my assumptions, including deliveries, the energy business, Tesla's future businesses like FSD, and of course much more. And then if you want to easily download that and put in your own numbers, then this third tier is for you. To all of my Patreon supporters, thank you so much. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet as well. It's really important to like the videos because that makes it less likely that the channel will be shadow banned later, like my other big channel got shadow banned before from about 50% of my regular viewers. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.